Welcome to episode 170 of the Pharmacist Voice podcast. I'm the host, Kim Newlove. Today's episode is part of my Back to School series, which features interviews with 9 pharmacists who teach online courses. Up next is Dr. Adam Martin, the Fit Pharmacist. He talks about personal branding and his online course, which is called Script Your Brand. A link to the course is in the show notes, which you can find at thepharmacistvoice.com. Just click on the podcast tab and search for episode 170. Without further ado, here's my conversation with Dr. Adam Martin. Hi, Dr. Adam Martin. Welcome back to the Pharmacist Voice podcast. How are you?
Kim, it's so great to be here. To be honest, I have COVID, but I'm excited.
You look amazing. I know this is audio only, but I would not have been able to tell had you not admitted it. So thanks for being here.
I'm happy to. I'm happy to.
I invited you here today to talk about how you use your voice as an educator, a pharmacist who's an educator in the form of your online course. But first, I want to ask, could you please just explain who you are and what you do for any of my listeners who haven't heard of you? I can't imagine there are many, but there might be one.
Absolutely. Well, first off, Kim, I just want to say thank you for what you're doing. I love your platform. I love your mission with the pharmacist voice and really bringing pharmacists to a place so that they can share their voice in what's most passionate to them. Because the reality is, all of us got into pharmacy for one main reason: to help other people and be happy in the process. Now, how we do that really changes. But the one thing that we all have, whether it's verbal or nonverbal, is the voice we have to share what our mission is. And my firm belief, and why I got into all this stuff that I do with creating the Fit Pharmacist and all that, is that every single person was created on purpose for a purpose. You have a passion, and it wasn't an accident. Now, that gift was given to you, not for you. It's yours to steward and develop so that you can take that passion, connect it with a person or group of people most important to you. And when you step into that place of service, it becomes your purpose. And I think one of the biggest reasons that pharmacists feel burned out and looking and asking themselves, is this all there is because they don't feel that they're living in their purpose. They feel like they traded their purpose for a paycheck. But what I say is, why don't you have a purpose driven paycheck? Instead of having to pick between purpose or a paycheck, what if you could have both? And that's exactly what my course is about, but a little bit about why I'm qualified to teach anything is that I started from being, quote, underqualified. When I decided to be a pharmacist, it was because my mom was diagnosed with extremely aggressive cancer when I was in high school. Didn't know it at the time, but she was given less than 6 months to live. And that actually is what guided me into the profession. It gave me a really strong why, like, okay, this is something that I really can do, because at that time in my life, I didn't even know what a pharmacist was. Real talk, they were just smart people in a white coat running around saying, help, 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 we're understaffed. That's literally all I knew a pharmacist was. No family, friends, no neighbors, nothing. But they took so much care of my mom and my family because we were in the pharmacy literally most days a week for chemo and medication. And that's what caught my attention and drove me to pharmacy. I saw the care and I said, that's the kind of person I want to be. So I had a very strong why. I had a very clear reason of why I wanted to be that person. So I applied to pharmacy school only to be told, you're rejected. You can't get in. You're not made for this. It's too competitive. You should consider other options. And that was a humbling moment because I was like, you know, college telling me this isn't for you. It's too competitive. I had to make a huge decision. I had to say, am I really going to give this another go and take a piece of humble pie, retake some classes, get innovative, really go all in beyond what I thought I could do? Or am I going to listen to the advice I got and try to figure something else out? So I doubled down, went all in, and ended up getting waitlisted to pharmacy school, which, let's be honest, that means, hey, we gave offers of admission to people that we really want, but if they say no, we'll give you a chance. And that's what happened. I ended up being the last person getting into my class of pharmacy. And when I got in, I was not going to waste that opportunity. So I took every opportunity possible as president of my class, ended up going to 7 pharmacy conferences as a student, and really cracking the code of how can you really maximize pharmacy school to create a competitive advantage, to stand out, not as competing against other people, but competing against the best version of yourself, the version of ourselves that we all want, but we all inherently know is not showing up. How do you tap into that? How do you bring that out? How do you stand out so you can be of highest service to other people? And that brought me from not even getting into pharmacy school to there was an award thing a couple years ago. I was named the most influential pharmacist, and taking that and leveraging it. And how can I help other pharmacists that are honestly way more qualified than me really own their brilliance in a way that can help other people to learn from what they went through. So I hope I distilled that and skip through all the the sentimentals, but that at the core, that's my through line behind why I got into pharmacy and what led me to create my course, the Fit Pharmacist brand, and everything else that I do.
Very good. Thank you for explaining that. I love it when people share their why because we don't create online courses just because we want to earn extra money, right? It's because we have something that we really feel empowered and passionate about sharing.
Yeah.
And yeah, so let's get right into your course. What's it called and where can people find it?
Absolutely. So I appreciate that, like not trying to make money. And funny story, I did it the opposite way. I just started the Fit Pharmacist. Actually, came from a friend saying you have to join social media, and I said, "What's that?" And they said, "Pick a name that represents what you're about." I'm like, "Well, I love fitness. I'm into pharmacy and optimizing performance. Let's become the Fit Pharmacist." And that was born from helping people solve problems. I can't eat healthy. There's no time. I don't have time to work out, and really finding pharmacists that are so well talented, but they're blind to their own brilliance because of stress, because of limiting beliefs, because of what their family says they can't do, because of toxic relationships, whatever it might be. So I started giving all this stuff away for free, and it was growing and thriving to literally almost every country out there. And then someone said, "Are you making any money?" I'm like, "What do you mean? I'm just helping people." And they're like, "Yeah, but what you have here, it's changed my life." I'm like, "What do you mean?" Like, I'm just sharing tips. And I started to hear that over and over and over again. And they started to ask me, "How did you build your brand?" I was like, "What are you talking about? I'm just a dude. Like, what's a brand?" This is a true story. This is how this course came to be. And I realized I made a lot of mistakes. I made a lot of great decisions, and in that process, from not getting in to everyone knows the Fit Pharmacist, so you say, who knows? But I realized that in that 7-year time frame, I did develop a brand. I was the most influential pharmacist. So what I did is I reverse engineered everything I did, all the things that I shouldn't have done, all the money I wasted, all the things that were the needle movers, and I condensed that into a really simple format from I have a burning passion or have lots of passions and don't know which one to pick, to I am known as the go to expert in this niche of my field. So that when that topic comes up, boom, you're the person I call, which is actually what led me to become a professional speaker and flying all over the world talking about what I talk about. So that's where the course came from. That's kind of the behind the scenes. But to answer your question, it's called Script Your Brand, and it is a course helping you to look at all of the assets you have. And that's not just the trophies you won or the awards you got, it's also the pain that you've endured, because everything is for the good of those who put their trust in the mission. So if you can look at life as the good things are awesome, but the challenges were actually opportunities to forge your character, and realize that in that process, you might not be done, you might not have solved your issue, but you're a lot farther ahead than you started. And what you have to realize is that there are people out there who are craving what you know. Because I always tell it like this: we're in a book of life, right? Lessons will be repeated until learned. Life is a classroom. So in your book of life, you might not be done with your story, but you're on, let's say, chapter 5. There are people stuck and struggling with the preface. They're not even getting through page 1 of chapter 1. And while you feel you're not good enough in terms of the process, you have actually made a lot of progress that is invaluable. So if you're on chapter 5, as long as you're continually to grow, you can help someone in chapter 1 get through that, get to chapter 2, get to chapter 3. And that's the part that trips so many pharmacists up. We're wired for perfection. We are paid to look for what's wrong, where we fall short. So I help pharmacists go through and see that everything you've gone through wasn't in vain. Your pain has a purpose. It actually is a gift for people who feel like they aren't cut out for it. They aren't, quote, where they're supposed to be, and leverage every single thing for the good of others. And when you can do that, that's how you build a brand. A brand isn't about a coffee mug with your logo. A brand is the impact in other people's lives that you can make consistently, so much so that you're talked about when you're not in the room because you genuinely come from a place of service. Now, how to do that, that's what the course walks you through. And it doesn't matter if you have a thriving brand. So I've had clients that were going hard for years with no traction. One of my all stars, she had less than 500 followers on Instagram. And it's not about followers, but this is just a sample of impact. Now she has almost 8,000, and this is in less than a year. She's a little over 8,000. She's monetizing on YouTube. She's got 11,000 on TikTok. And now she is doing exactly what I said. She is known to own her space and is being contacted because when her niche comes up, she's top of mind and she's getting speaking engagement offers, offers to come teach classes, like incredible things, to the point where now she's changing her career towards her passion instead of having to choose, do I want to pursue my passion or do I want to make a paycheck? What if you could make both, because what you're doing is so impactful and needed in the world, in our profession? So I know I'm gum flapping a bit here, but I get real fired up about this stuff because I want you to hear this, whoever's listening. Everything you've gone through in life has a purpose. When you can walk through this and see that, it becomes that for you. And you can live life at the highest level. It's so, so fulfilling. So imagine a life that is fulfilling that you get paid for. That's exactly what I help people do. And I'm sorry I'm talking so long, but I'm real passionate about this stuff.
I know you are. I know you are. And you're well positioned to talk about it and teach about it because of that. And I appreciate you. Now, are your clients just pharmacists? Because I know that you are a pharmacist, but does that mean that your clients are pharmacists too?
This is such a brilliant question. And there's a reason why the answer is no. When I wrote my first book, it was about self-care for pharmacists, how to manage stress, fit and fitness, all the stuff that we think we can't do, right? And when I was about to write it, this is years ago, one of my business mentors said, because I was going to make this for all of healthcare, he said, you might want to change your approach. I'm like, what do you mean? Healthcare, like I'm in healthcare, I can talk to it. He's like, yeah, but you're not a nurse. You're not a doctor. You're a pharmacist. And eventually you might get there, but you need to stay in your lane and get really focused. So literally, I was about to publish this book and I was all excited, but what he said made sense. And it was a little tail behind the legs kind of thing. But I took the advice, I put it into practice, and I scripted it so that the book was specific for pharmacists and self-care. And I published it and I thought, maybe a couple of my friends will like this. Less than 24 hours, bestseller on Amazon, over 15 countries, incredible. There's a reason I'm telling you this, and it's not to impress you, it's to impress upon you how important this is. You must stay in your lane and get focused as specific as possible. So in 2019, I hired a professional speaking coach. Freaking amazing. Now we're colleagues, which blows my mind. But she gave me words of wisdom that I want to share with you that totally is the foundation of a brand. With a brand, you want to go an inch wide and a mile deep. You do not want to be everything to everyone or nobody will pay attention. If you cast a wide net, fish are going to swim right through the big holes. You want to get really specific so that you're so specific, you own your lane as the go to expert. And once you dominate that niche, then people will take notice that you know what you're talking about and then they will come. It's totally opposite. We think that if we cast a wide net, because our stuff can help everyone. And yes, that's true. But if you try to help everyone, you end up helping nobody. But when you focus on helping a specific person, an avatar, or a specific niche or group of people, once you do that consistently from your heart and genuinely help them, you are the person in that niche. And by going narrow first and owning that, then it widens out to other people. So the reason I give this long-winded story is I started specifically with only pharmacists. And because it helped so many people, now I have clients, chiropractors, doctors of physical therapy, on and on and on, because they see how effective it was for an extremely competitive profession. Then they saw proof of concept, and that's what brought them in. So it's totally counterintuitive. And this is the biggest hurdle I help people break through is what I have is so valuable, can help everyone. And that's genuinely true. I'm not knocking that. But you have to first focus on your lane and dominate it. Then you'll see by proof of concept that other people can benefit from that too.
Wow, drop the mic. That was great. That was great. From what I understand, you started off helping pharmacists and now you help others.
Yes,
Just in a nutshell, that's kind of what's happening, right?
correct. You got it.
That's great. I see so many similarities between what you do and how you focus and what I'm trying to do. So, if I had not had a coach already, I would be looking to hire you.
Oh, well, thank you for that. And I just want to acknowledge you because what I just shared is exactly what you're doing. I mean, it's the
Mhm.
pharmacist voice, but you're so active and thoughtful on LinkedIn. I mean, all the time, like props to this woman. And I'm not getting paid for this, by the way. So you can send me a check later if you really like it. But seriously, she will comment and not for like, oh, I did this, you owe me. It's she's the real deal. Just what yesterday, 2 days ago, I got a DM. Someone made a post about teaching pharmacy students about personal branding. She DM'd me and said, "Hey, I saw this post. I thought of you. You might want to weigh in." How thoughtful is that? But here's what's important. It wasn't to get something back in return. It's because this woman is a genuine giver. And because she focused and started on the pharmacist voice, you see her on LinkedIn, there's vocal artists and all the other stuff that's beyond my comprehension in all kind of different fields that are flocking to her because she is owning her lane. She went an inch wide and a mile deep, and because of her proof of concept, and because people can see that she's the real deal, people from all kinds of different backgrounds are coming to her to collaborate. And I'm just speculating, but is that true or true?
Well, the thing I commented on something that you had on Facebook, I think. Was it in your pharmacist growth group?
Yes.
I commented on something happened. All right, I'll share this. I don't think the people that I talk to will ever hear this, but because I'm an autism parent and I know audio production and I know how to pronounce big medical terms, I was talking to I think she's the president of an autism advocacy magazine for parents, and she was thinking about making the audio version of some part of her publication. Obviously, can't do the whole entire magazine, right? But they want to make it more accessible for busy parents. And they have nothing in audio right now. And in just getting to know her, this was not a pitch, this was us as parents
Yes.
getting to know each other. She said, I see your background there, which I know, Adam, you can see. And it says the pharmacist voice has got my logo on it. I've got a vinyl backdrop. It came from Etsy. If you ever want to know, the exact website, let me know. And anyways, this parent was saying, tell me about your business. I did. And I told her originally I wanted to narrate pharmacy continuing education journals into some sort of an audio format for busy pharmacists who don't have time to sit down and read. And she's like, basically, that's what we're looking for, some sort of an audio component for our magazine for busy parents who don't have time to sit down and read.
Yes.
And I was kind of spitballing with her what that could look like. We didn't intend to have a business conversation, but because I'm very authentic in sharing what I do, these things happen. Like you said, Adam, sometimes when you just share what you do very authentically, you'll attract people who are outside your original niche.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, get you're living your brand, which I think is so important. We think, oh, well, when I go to a conference, I have to be, in character. And speaking of conference, I just got back from the National Speakers Association annual convention, which was freaking mind blowing. Literally the best speakers in the world in one place. Absolutely incredible. Abundant
Awesome.
generosity is a value, which I experienced more than I thought because I ended up getting a nice little COVID gift from that conference. But I digress.
Sorry, man.
Nah, it's part of life, right? But the reason I share that is because one of the biggest lessons I learned from these people who are literally the best speakers in the world. To give you an idea, I met one speaker. He's so good at sales that his clients pay him $2.25 million a year not to teach their competition. So it's not for him to do anything, it's paying him to not teach their competition. That's how good he is. These are the people I'm talking about. But from that, one of the biggest lessons I learned is that you must be on stage and off stage one and the same. So it's not you turn on when you're on stage. You have to live your brand authentically because people are always watching. And that's not necessarily why you do it, but it's just kind of something to keep you in check. If you're not living your brand authentically, it creates distrust. And if you don't have trust, you don't have rapport. If you don't have rapport, the advice you give will not be implemented. And advice that is not acted on is the same as ignorance. I say that knowledge without action is the same as not knowing. So what you have to really realize is you must be living your brand. So you got to get clear on what that is if you're going to be living it 24/7. You don't want to be living two separate lives, which is what a lot of pharmacists try to do with work life balance. That means you're trying to live two separate lives. It's a bunch of crap. And the reason it's not working is because of that very reason. If instead you flip to work life integration, then it totally shifts it and you actually live your one life authentically in all dimensions. So, little tangent, but also very related to exactly what you're saying.
Yes, absolutely. And I live as authentically as I can. I tell people
You
all the
do.
time, I work part time for a reason. Family comes first. And I have a child with a disability. But, having a child with a disability has opened me up to the abilities communities. And
Yeah.
I've had some invitations to volunteer. And also, hey, this might turn into a paid job with that magazine. So you just never know. You got to just show who you are. And I understand that's part of your course. And thank you for sharing that because I think that will lead me to the next question, which is what can students do with their knowledge once they complete your course? What do you see your students doing?
Right. So you can literally change your entire career. You can change your life to exactly what you want it to be. So many pharmacists I meet, I say, like, what do you want? Well, it's not going to happen, so it doesn't matter. What do you mean? Well, I see other people doing this, but I can't because, but that's for other people. There's all these limiting beliefs. You can actually live your life on your terms. It's possible. And you have to realize that success is not for other people. Just because you failed in the past doesn't mean that you will fail in the future. It's something to learn from. And just like I did, you can turn your failure into your entire brand. I mean, my whole thing started, true story. I didn't get into pharmacy school, I was waitlisted. And I thought that was just like, I never talked about it until after I graduated. I shared it with someone and they did a double take and their jaw dropped. I'm like, what? They're like, you did but but what? And I'm like, "What? It's not a big deal." And they're like, "Yeah, it is." And then I started to realize that I've been blind to my own brilliance. And I think all too often we discount ourselves because we're always looking into the future. What do I have to do? What's next? What's next? What's next? We're achievement driven. We're success driven. But here's what you have to realize. If you don't take time to celebrate your wins, you will feel like you're losing when you're actually winning. This is one of the biggest truths in pharmacy that so many people miss. And it's part of my mission to help people realize that everything you think you need outside of yourself, that light, that aha moment that you think is out there, everything you've been looking for has been within you the whole time. So, my whole mission is to help guide people to unapologetically own their fire because the light you seek has been within you the whole time. It's not meant to some quest out there. It's not meant to hide from other people and put it in a clay jar under the bed. It's meant and given to you to ignite and steward so you can put it on a table to allow other people trapped in the darkness to come towards that light and realize that the light they've been looking for has been within them the whole time too. So, personal brand, yes, it's personal, but it's not for you. It starts with you, but it's for other people. That's the big ticket. And when you can live that, which is exactly what you do, Kim, that's how you grow a brand. And from that, you can grow a business, which is what I have done in several areas, what some of my clients have done. And that's exactly what you can do if that's what you want. And that's the big question. What do you want? Not what your spouse wants, not what you think your pharmacy professors want you to do, not what your parents want you to do, not what you wanted to do when you were a different version of yourself a few years ago. What do you authentically want so that you feel like you're living your truth instead of a lie? That will set you so free. But that's a process that I guide you through in the course.
Thank you for sharing that. I love when you shared, something that you think was a failure is actually your strength,
Yeah,
talking about yourself in pharmacy school.
yeah,
For many, many years, I was a stay at home parent and I couldn't work full time because my husband and I had made an agreement, what a lot of us married women might call a silent agreement, where I stay at home, I raise the kids, I support him so he can be a success, and we can work on our goals together. So we benefit, both of us. It's not just him. Okay. Outwardly, it may look like it's just him, but it's both of us because we are a pair.
yes,
There's a partnership, there's a marriage. But I felt like one of my biggest failures was that I'm a very smart and capable person. And I felt like a chained dog and I could not work. And I have come to the realization that I can't work full time. I just can't. And I always thought that was a failure. But the success part is I have helped my husband succeed and I've helped my son be reach his full potential. He's not as high functioning as some other kids with autism. He's not. But one of the things that I got out of it, one of the things that happened for me was that I realized the power of having a voice and using it. And that's what's behind my whole brand. My son not having a voice has inspired me to use mine. For years I didn't, and I'm getting chills saying this, but it's just what you do when you have a brand and it's really authentic. And what I did was I created a voiceover business and I narrate audiobooks for women pharmacist authors. There's so much more potential to unlock even as a part-timer. And you talked about that gentleman who gets paid $2.25 million to not train other people's employees. Well, I'll tell you, in the voiceover industry, when you're the voice of Coke or Lexus or one of the major brands, you get paid big bucks to be that voice. And it's exclusivity. That is what they are paying for. That's what sometimes voice actors get paid for. I would love to do that and sit home and, be the voice of something and get paid $2.25 million for it. But I'm giving you my example of what I did with my brand. Is there any way you could share a couple of examples of things that your students from your online course have done with their brands? Have they created a business where they coach people or they write books or, you know what I mean? Like, I'd love a couple of examples.
one quit her job and now does that. How many pharmacists do you hear? I've got my golden handcuffs. I wish I could get out, but I have a mortgage. I have a car payment, all this. So when you create from an authentic place, and I think y'all can hear when you said you got the chills, that's what we're talking about, authentic place. When you ask someone, why do you do what you do? There's something that I call dropping from your head to your heart. So if you have a brand or whatnot, and it's okay, like it's not, you don't feel that like inner passion. It's because you haven't connected to your why. So there's a point to this, and I want to really drive this home. When you ask someone why you're doing it, oftentimes it's a general head based answer to help other people. Well, why do you want to help other people? To make an impact. Well, why do you want to make an impact? And on and on. So if you're stuck in your head, you're dead because logic only gets you so far. But when you can tie emotion to why you're doing what you're doing, you drop into your heart. So I want to share with everyone there's a really simple tool, and I walk you through this in the course in depth. Literally, almost every person that's done this cried, including myself. The first time I did this was on a plane to Colorado a few years ago, and I literally cried. And I was so happy, I didn't care. But this is a simple tool called 7 Levels Deep, and it's very simple. All you do is when you think you have a reason for why you're doing something and something important like your brand, ask yourself why 7 times. So whenever you say, why do you want to be the pharmacist voice? Because I want to help people be heard. Why is that important for you to help people be heard? Because not everyone has a microphone, and you, whatever it is. And after about the third or fourth time you answer, there's a shift and you can feel the drop from your head to your heart, and you start getting really into it, and you start to get an answer like, my son, who's my world, can't speak, so he doesn't have the ability, and I have to be the voice. I have the honor and privilege to be the voice on his behalf. And the more I know about pharmacists, the more I realize how most of them are introverted. Most of them have shame. Most of them have so much going on from their past failures, from where they think they should be, from expectations that are unspoken, but they're trying to live up to anyway, that they feel like they can't speak. But when you take the mic and be the voice for them, pretty soon they realize that they do, in fact, have a voice. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. I just kind of riffed on that, but you see how intense you got with the emotions. Like, I just riffed. Is that true or not? I don't know.
That's partly true. There's no when I you're kind of referring to my podcast.
Yes.
When I interview people, I help them share how they use their voice to advocate for something, educate in some way, or entertain.
Yes.
And I'm just inviting them to share how they use their voice so we can inspire other people to use their voices too.
Correct.
Whether it's them sharing their strengths or their passions or both or more. It's it's an opportunity to inspire people because I was inspired to use my voice too. You think about clinical pharmacy. Typically, you practice in a hospital or, a lot of people work in retail, but
Yeah.
then there's all these other opportunities. I can't do that. My major barrier is childcare. I can send my child to school, but hey, who is giving out jobs where you only work 9A to 3P? Nobody. And then nobody does the work that needs to be done around the house when I'm away. So I figured, I can't do that. But what I can do is I can use my voice and I can combine it with my background as a pharmacist. There's got to be something I can do.
Yeah.
And I've gotten all kinds of opportunities to volunteer. And volunteering, I must say, helps you uncover some of your passions and your strengths.
Yes.
Like I started working for my county's addiction task force. It was called the opiate task force at the time. I went in there thinking, I'm going to be the headliner. I just worked at a behavioral health hospital in addiction medicine. My specialty was mental illness and addiction disorders, opioids, benzos, alcohol. They're going to want me to talk to all kinds of people and educate them. I walked in, and you know what they wanted me to do? They wanted me to be the secretary.
There you
So
go.
here's the thing, if you are humble and you
Mm.
come from a place of service, they will let you help and you can make an impact. But it'll help you find your voice. It'll help you find your place and it'll help you learn. You learn what's already happening that's good and how can you fit into what's already there. You don't have to come take over and just be the headliner. You can just be a part of the success, and however it becomes a success, it doesn't have to be because of you. That's
E
what I learned.
Exactly, and when you come from a place of service and you show up to serve in whatever capacity is needed, it connects you out of your head and into your heart, which is the driving force for lasting progress, not short flashes in the pan. So that's
Yeah.
exactly what it is. So it's the same concept, but you have to have a strong emotionally driven why. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to persevere the hardships, not if, but when they happen. And this is exactly what you can do with the brand. I mean, it's literally unlimited depending on what you want. So for me, I worked almost 10 years in corporate retail pharmacy, loved it. Like one of the crazy people that actually loved it. So I quit in
You are
December.
crazy.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I'm fully aware. Like I loved it. I thrived. I mean, the last Monday I worked, I did 620 scripts by myself. I thrive under that stuff.
Oh
But
my.
I say all that to tell you, when I quit, it wasn't that I was running away from a burning building like you see on all the Facebook posts, right? I left to pursue my passion, my calling, to really do what I do in terms of mission work, to pursue speaking full time. That was part of my brand that I was blind to most of my life until full circle, until I had an opportunity to serve and speak to faculty on something I was genuinely passionate about, nutrition, and that is what the light bulb was. Someone came up to me and said, "Wow, how long have you been a professional speaker?" And I was like, an hour?"
And that
But
was true.
but that hit me. I'm like, "Wait a minute. I've heard these compliments my whole life, but I thought people were just being nice. Like teachers telling me that you have to, colleagues telling me that, students like you're just being nice." But then I started to realize these were consistent compliments. So that's one of the exercises I take my clients through. Are you blind to your brilliance? Almost always it's yes. Or you recognize it, but not to the level and depth that you could leverage it to monetize it and actually turn a career out of it. So that's one of the things is it's not reinventing the wheel. And I'm going to give everyone a tip real quick here that you can put into practice. One of the biggest reasons people either don't start a brand or they start it and fizzle out is because of overwhelm, because of one reason. They're asking, how am I going to do this? There's so many options. There's so many courses. There's so many people with different things. How am I going to stand out? How am I going to make this work? Right question, wrong time. If you ask that first, it always leads you to feel overwhelmed. And when you're overwhelmed, it's complexity. And complexity is the enemy of execution. Simply meaning, if you're overwhelmed, you ain't going to do nothing. So, first, you have to ask, what do you want? Clearly, with specificity. Think of it like a SMART goal. What do you want with as clear specificity as possible? Once you identify what you want, then you ask, why does it matter? Why is that important to me? Going through 7 levels deep, connecting with an emotionally driven reason. So I'm going to ask you something. If you're clear on what you want and you have an emotionally driven, genuine, heart centered reason why it's important, that's going to fire you up and you'll know what to do. So when you ask, how is this going to work? You're supercharged, you're primed, you know what you want, you know why it's important, how is gonna it's almost like, I knew exactly what to do. And Kim, when you were thinking of this, your brand, you knew what you wanted, and it's a process. It's not like, "Oh, I got this immediately." It's a process, right? You knew what you
Yes.
wanted, you knew
Yes.
why it was important. It was like the blinders came off, you connected, and it was like this moment of clarity. There was lots of steps, but my hallucination is the first step or two you took, it was like you knew what to do. You were driven by that clarity because clarity is power. So that's my tip is if you have a brand and you're stuck or you threw in the towel or you haven't started because of you're asking how do I do it? First ask what do you want? Clarity. Second, why is it important on an emotional level? And once you get those, then and only then can you ask, how is this going to work?
Now, Adam, I'm going to challenge you just a little bit
Oh, okay.
to share how some of your clients have found their brand and used it, and I'm just going to guess that it just depends on what their passion and their focus and their strengths are and their realizations. So, I'm sure that when they come into the program, they may not know. It's all fuzzy and then it comes into focus as they're leaving the program. So, can you share some success stories? Like, what have people been able to do once they have brought that brand into focus?
They make money. They change their job. They go into an industry or a niche that they didn't even think possible. I just got a DM literally 3 days ago from one of my clients who started just to get clear. Running is her niche. She's freaking awesome. Not a pharmacist, by the way, because I did what I said, like, I'm living what I'm what is it? It's not practice what you preach, it's preach what you practice, okay? So she messaged me and said, I'm freaking out because I've been doing this branding so clear on running that I got invited to speak at another group and they want to pay me, but I don't know what to do. How much do I charge? How does speaking work? Da, 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 da. So, without even the intention of going to other groups and teaching as a paid online speaker, that's now a lane that is opened up to her, which is flexible, grows her brand by networking. It's a value and market exchange because she's sharing her expertise with a captive audience that's her niche. So this is just one simple example that happened 3 days ago, but it's ongoing. It really depends on where you are and what your lane. And I think part of the beauty with this is once you really come in line and get aligned with what your passions truly are. And when I say passion, it's what you are wired for, what your interests are, and connecting with a person or group of people that you genuinely just feel connected to. It allows you to live in your purpose. And I want to give you something to think about, listeners. A lot of times we feel like, oh, who's my ideal client? Who's my ideal audience? A lot of times it's you from the past. So if you think back of what you used to struggle with, of where you used to be confused, again, you're not perfect. There's still progress to be made. But I want to ask you a really simple question. I really want to challenge whoever is listening to this to really think about this. Right now, you're at a certain point in your life. And yes, you've got places to go and progress to make and so forth. But my guess is there was a point in your life where you were at a really low point. You were really struggling and you wondered, is there any hope for me? Now, that was back then. Right now, you've probably come past that. And again, you're not perfect, you've got progress. But I want to ask you a question. You've made progress, whether that's through doing self work, therapy, all that sort of stuff. You've made progress past that point. What if you could travel back in time to that moment when you were at your lowest point and take with you all the knowledge of what not to do, of what to do, and travel back in time to that version of you where you were stuck, hopeless, and lost. And you had 1 hour to share with the younger version of yourself, hey, I know you feel lost and hopeless right now. I'm you in the future. I've lived this. Here's what you do. Here's what you think will work, but don't do it. If you could do that for an hour, what would that be worth to you? Oftentimes, when I ask this, the question is answered by priceless. My point is this: you can't travel back in time, but there are people stuck exactly where you used to be. And when you can package what you've learned and share that with that person, that literally is priceless. And yes, you can figure it out on your own. But how long do you want it to take? That's the question you got to answer. How long do you want it to take? Are you willing to put your pride aside and ask for help from someone who has actually walked the walk from where you're looking to run to? Because if you can do that, you'll save time, you'll save pain, and you'll actually save money by investing because time is money. And for anyone who's gone through stuff trying to figure it out on their own, I know that you've spent money on things you thought would work and didn't, and you've spent money on things that did work. And collectively, you literally, it wasn't a waste, but you could have saved money if you got a process or system from someone who has actually done what you are looking to do. And when you can package that, there's your course. So just by saying that, maybe that gives you an insight into what your brand could be. But this is a part of the process that I walk my clients through. And how can you leverage everything that you've gone through for the service of others? And it's really fulfilling. How awesome would you feel if you volunteered, like you said, Kim, and you met someone who was stuck where you used to be? And you're like, yo, I get it. I used to be there. Here's what it takes. Here's what you do. Here's who you avoid, all that stuff. How fulfilling would that feel? Knowing that your pain was not in vain, that you could take what you went through and help someone else not have to go through the same crap you went through. Not only would you help that person, but in the process, you would fill your own cup. And because you're so filled up, you'll want to keep doing it more and more. That's called serving from the overflow. And that's what a brand is all about. When you do that consistently, it becomes a business. So that is a lane, an outcome that you can create if that's something you want to do. So, building a brand doesn't mean you have to quit your job and all this. I have clients who love their jobs and they just want to get more focused and build their expertise in where they are, or maybe stay where they are, but get promoted or whatever that might be. So it's not always a 180. It's not always quitting your job. That might not be a right fit for you. but understanding that everything you have is a gift given to you to steward and develop for the service of others. When you can understand what that gift is, when you can connect with who those others are, merge those, and that's your purpose. And when you get paid for your purpose, it's game over, baby. It's game on.
Yes, that is a great feeling when you can share your expertise and get paid for it. I've done it myself. And as an educator, with this online course, what's kind of cool is you're actually helping people find their brand, what they want to be known for, and using all those either failures or that knowledge that they've gotten, and you're teaching them, you're training the trainer, basically. Would
Yes,
you agree with that?
absolutely. Absolutely. Because you have to see that everything you have is for helping other people. So I love to work with people who know they have this fire inside them. They know they're made for more. They just don't know how to do it because they're asking, how do I do it first? So I literally help you overcome that overwhelm and connect with what you already have. That's the biggest thing. Everything you're looking for is not outside of yourself, it's been within you the whole time. And what lights me up is finding these trainers, as you say, these people who know they're meant for more. They're not giving up. They just don't know what to do. They might be frustrated, 23 out of 24 hours a day, but they're not going to quit because they know there's a knowing in them that there's more to give, and they just don't know how to connect with that. And when I can see, it's a moment, I you can't BS it. There's a moment when I'm teaching someone that a light bulb goes off. I see it in their eyes. That's why I do everything that I do, because what happens is they become so successful and grateful that they want to share it with other people. And that's why I do what I do, to keep this catalyst going. Life is a gift, and people are gifts. They are opened up by the questions that you ask. When you ask the right questions, you'll get better answers. It's the
Hmm.
quality of questions you ask that directly determine the quality of life that you live. And when you can approach it with this, life will never be the same. It's incredible. Incredible. That's why I do what I do. And that's why I want you to do this too. And it's what you do, Kim.
Adam, you've given me a lot of, or given the listeners really, a lot of reasons that they should take your course. One thing that I want to challenge you to answer, though, is that there are a lot of pharmacists out there who are in traditional clinical practice who have never taken the time to ask themselves those questions.
Yes.
And they're looking to change jobs. You mentioned that earlier. For anybody who's, I don't want to say just a pharmacist, but somebody who just wants to stay in traditional clinical practice in any number of settings, what would you say to them about your course and how that might help them really find their why and their brand and use that to find a job that they'll actually really enjoy a lot more?
Beautiful question. And you're gonna love this answer. This wasn't scripted, by the way.
It
It
wasn't.
allows it allows them to find their voice in a place of fulfillment. So they know that they love their job, but they also know that they have more to give. They just don't know how to find it. So going through this course will allow you to look at all the assets you have and leverage and package those in a way that you can show up differently, raise your standards, and perform in a way that's not based on accolades or metrics or any of that. Like, yes, that stuff's important, but it's not a driving force for you anymore. It's not a measure of your self worth or identity. It's how can you take everything that you've learned and package it in a way that serves the mission that's bigger than you. So that's the big thing is, you know, building a brand, a business isn't about you have to leave where you are to ascend. No, it's you have to become more in tune with who you are so that you become a human being instead of a human doing. Because that's oftentimes the reason why we're so addicted as pharmacists to performance. That's how the culture's wired. Do this, you get a raise. Do this, you get promoted. So you get this inherent association that that's all you're worth until you realize that you have a lot to give where you are. Some people, that might mean leaving pharmacy. Some people, it's leaving one niche to another. Some, it's leaving where you are to go to somewhere better. And some, it's digging in deeper to become more of who you've always been. So oftentimes it's not about doing more, it's about looking closer. And this course guides you to do just that. That's really the biggest thing with it is it's not go do all these things and add to your task list because we love our task list. And but what
I love
happens with
lists.
those? Yeah, what happens though? We start our day with top 10 things, and as the day goes on, we add 40 and only crossed off 5. So we feel real inspired at the end of the day. But instead of having you go do all this stuff, it's looking at what you've already done. I call it itemizing your assets. What have you already done that you might have not noted? Because again, if you don't take time to celebrate your progress, you're going to feel like you're losing when you're actually winning. So, what if everything you've already done has prepared you for all you've meant to become? And that's really the process. How can we look at everything you've done and see that's who you are? It's not based on what you do, it's who you are. That's what is your secret sauce. It's the light inside of you. And when you can take and own all parts of that, the good and the rough patches, recognizing that the rough patches are what developed your character, they've empowered you and positioned you to be an expert on your authority topic. For example, me not getting into pharmacy school. That made me quite the expert on helping people how to really get the most out of pharmacy school, so much so that I wrote a book on it, Gen Z Pharmacist, How to Dominate Pharmacy School and Script Your Dream Career. They teach you great stuff in pharmacy school, but I think every pharmacist listening knows that there's a lot of stuff they didn't teach you that is the real needle mover. Leadership, networking, personal branding, all those kind of things that literally are what set you apart. Here's the reality. You're in an industry where when you graduate, you have a doctorate and so does everybody else. Real heartwarming, huh? So, what most people do is they go out and get another certification and get more degrees than a thermometer to quote, prove themselves that they are qualified. But instead of trying to do more, what if you looked closer and saw that everything that you've done, all you have is all you need? But how to package that in a way that makes sense and gives you clarity for serving others, that's how you build a brand. A brand is how much value can you provide to make other people's lives easier, solving a certain problem. And it's not about going to a think tank and figuring out what problem do I solve. It's what problems have you already solved in your life? What problems are you digging into, evolving, getting more intricate and elegant with, such that you can help other people who are stuck in the problem solve it from your expertise, from your experience. You're more qualified than you think you are.
Amen to that. I think that this really serves at least two groups. For the listeners, I'm just trying to help them understand if this course can be right for them. Somebody who's in traditional clinical practice, who's looking to maybe change settings and needs to uncover what they really want to get paid to do, what they're passionate about. They could come to you to uncover that, and then they can communicate that brand on a resume, on social media, etc., to attract future employers who want to pay them to do that thing that they really do like to do. Or there's other individuals who may want to, like you said earlier, share what those failures were or the pitfalls to avoid, flatten the learning curve, all that good stuff. You could empower them to uncover what that brand is and how to sell it. Well, how to sell something with that brand.
And that's the big thing is we hear sales and pharmacy. We're like, oh, I'm not a salesman. I don't sell cars. It's icky. You're selling anyway. If let's say community pharmacy, when a patient comes in, they ask you a question. The advice you give, that's a sale. You have to convince the patient that the information you're giving is accurate and you need to sell them on the idea to implement that advice because you might know it, but knowledge without action is the same as ignorance or not knowing. So you are selling whether you realize it or not. So, how you can package that in a way that's of service, that's what really makes it happen. It's not, oh, I have to make money and be slimy. Like sales is not slimy. The only way sales is slimy and icky is if you're selling something that you don't believe in. But before you can make a sale, you have to first be sold on yourself. Otherwise, no one else is going to buy it. which is when you get really clear on all the assets that you have earned through living them, and you can package that to people that need what you have to offer. That's a no brainer sale. You are a product of the product, a living testimony of what you're selling. And that might be a free article, a free lead magnet, whatever it might be. But you are qualified because of what you've lived. And when you can do that consistently and see that people are stuck where you used to be, it actually becomes unethical for you not to sell it, because if you were stuck, think of this real quick. Think back to when you're at your lowest point. Let's say someone walks by you, looks at you, and they think, "Hmm, I used to be there." And then they keep going. How unethical is that? When you don't sell something like that that's genuine and true, that's exactly what you're doing. So perhaps you're perfectly qualified to sell because you're not selling crap. You're sharing a service that you yourself have used. You are a product of the product. And by default, you are perfectly positioned to help other people overcome where they feel stuck.
Well said. Well, thank you for sharing all that. I think you're going to motivate a lot of people to want to find their personal brand and to use it.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean that's my whole mission is so many pharmacists I see are just going through the motions. They graduate all excited and they get in a job. And after, let's see, average, I'd say 8 to 12 months is average when this starts to happen. They start to ask questions like, is this all there is? Is this what I went to school for? I'm paying loans and this is what I have to look forward to. So then they go into retail therapy mode. I'll buy a Mercedes, that'll make me feel better. I'll buy a home, that'll make it, all this stuff. And they get locked into the golden handcuffs and they feel like they can't leave. So then they resent the profession. Then they join these really great Facebook groups about how the future of pharmacy is so bright, right? But that's what we see. That's our culture, unfortunately. And my purpose is to reframe that, not to ignore problems, but how can we be a part of the solution? Because something you have to hear, and this might upset people, but it's the truth. I've got to share it. Nobody is coming to save you. Nobody is coming to save you. Jesus saved your soul, but nobody is coming to save you from the job that's unfulfilling. Nobody's coming to knock on your door and say, "Oh, we heard all about you. Come take this." No. You must take part in your own rescue. And if you don't believe you can, what are you going to do?
I've said that same thing about nobody's going to come to save you. I've said that on a podcast episode. I was kind of upset about the people not working together.
Mm,
We can achieve so much more when we work together. It's the
yes.
story of the Belgian draft horses. Do you know that story?
Yes.
Yes, we can accomplish so much more if we bear our burdens together. Nobody's coming to save you. You have to get up and save yourself, be your own hero. But, you can still be your patient's guide. There's a
Yeah.
lot of things you can do.
Yes.
So,
Exactly.
yeah, I love that message. Now, I know we were talking about being salesy and people, feeling salesy. I know you're not selling a lemon. So tell us how much does your tell us how much does your script your brand course cost? What's the investment?
Sure. So the investment is 997, and this is a full comprehensive. This will take you through the whole process, whether you're getting clear on your career or you're scaling from a brand you already have into a thriving business. This is literally everything you have. I know there's some courses out there where, part one and then by part two, and then depending where you go, this is step by step, meeting you where you are, working first on clarity. And I like to have fun and dance. So
You
it's
dance in
literally,
your course?
yeah, yeah, I do. So that it's called the
I
simple
love it.
framework is pop, lock, and drop it. First, you have to pop it. You have to find your what I call your POP, your point of purpose. We get real clear on what that is. Then from there we scale. Then from there we get real strategic, exactly what to do. There's no guesswork. There are worksheets that you fill in and it literally allows you to create a blueprint for your brand and it actually becomes your business plan. So it's incredible for how you can take what you think was a waste of time or that's not going to help anyone and see that everything you need is all that you need, and how to package that so that you can scale that to whatever you want to do. It's incredible. It's changed lots of lives. I'd love for it to change yours if you'd give me the opportunity, because it's what, I can go on and on. You can tell I'm getting fired up about it, but it really does do what it says it does. And again, I'm a product of the product. So that's why I'm so passionate about it, is I've seen what it does in my life, in the lives of my clients, and I'd love for you to be one of them.
Is the course available online like 24/7, or do you have to unlock something every week? How does it work? Is it self-paced?
Yes, it's self-paced because pharmacists have all kinds of schedules. So
Mhm.
again, I think the best way to lead someone to where they want to go is to meet them where they are. We're all starting from different places and moving at different paces. So I make it very customizable while also giving you accountability so that you consistently move the needle forward.
Okay. And I understand that there's a lot of worksheets, and it would almost limit how fast somebody could go through it because you really have to take the time to do the work, right? So, how long do you think it takes to go through this?
That's totally self-paced. I've had clients go through it in a couple weeks. I've had some go through it at a more leisurely pace. But regardless, as long as you stay consistent, that's what moves the needle. And it really is a simple concept, but I really want to drive it home in that persistence pays. So if you stick with your dream and you don't let it go, the world moves for those who are persistent.
Yes. Now, as students go through the course, is it recommended that they book time with you in addition? Do you offer that? Is it included? What's that like having time with you?
Absolutely. Awesome question. So you can absolutely, I have one-on-one clients right now. I am booked, so there is a waiting list for that. However, you can do that in addition. I have students that did the course on their own, totally fine. It's really what your preference is. Some people like that extra accountability, like that hand holding. However, there is accountability built into the course, and it's given to you in very simple nuggets. So literally like 30 minutes. And what you get once you complete that module, you get a reinforcement email. It's all simple, because the whole point of this is to take your confusion and turn it into simplicity and make clarity from that, because clarity is power. So that was my whole objective, is how can I make this so simple and clear that regardless of where you are, whether you know what your brand is or you have all these ideas and you don't know which one to pick, you can start and make progress where you are at a pace that you can stick to, because consistency is the number one thing that will help you in scaling your brand. So you can't stay consistent if you don't have clarity. So by starting and meeting yourself where you are, that's going to guide you exactly to where you want to go.
Adam, do you have any competitors in this space with branding and being a pharmacist?
I'm not aware of any competitors in the space that I do, because everyone has a different lane, everyone has a different outcome. But from going from not even getting into pharmacy school to being named most influential pharmacist, so that's the career thing, to building a professional speaking career, multiple published author, on and on and on. And I'm not telling you this to impress y'all, I'm telling this to impress upon you. When you take advice or a course or a coach or whatever it is the person living what you're looking to achieve? Have they actually gone through the painful process of making the mistakes, of finding what really works? So that when you get stuck or something happens, God forbid in life, right? They can say, "Oh, I know how to pivot from that. I experienced it too." Because the thing you got to realize is life's not a straight line, it ain't an easy path. So, unless someone walked that path, how are they going to guide you if they haven't gone through that too? So, hopefully that answers that question.
Hey, that's one of many answers. If you don't know of any in your space, that's fine, and I think you have totally validated who you are and what you do. So, yeah, much respect for all of the pitfalls that you are helping people avoid and flattening learning curves and everything that you do. I see a lot of similarities between what you do and what I do, and One of the things that I do is provide voiceovers. I mean, that's not helping anybody avoid too many pitfalls except for hiring people that don't know how to run their own tech. But, some of the things that I'm starting to do, which is showing people the behind the scenes of my podcast and maybe starting to coach people about podcasting because there's so many pharmacists that want to start a podcast, you're basically validating my thought process. I've been there. I've done all kinds of things. I've made all kinds of mistakes. I can tell you what to avoid. And yeah, I love that you do that, and I think it's again a train the trainer moment. Like if you are looking to make a personal brand and teach people things that they need to avoid and things that they want to learn how to do, then, if you're doing this, you're doing it right. I love that.
It's the truth, and again, unsolicited, unpaid, praise, unless you wanna send me a check. So I had the honor of because I said I quit my job in December, and now I get to speak more, travel the country. I had the honor of speaking at Ohio Pharmacists Association, but more of an honor to meet this lovely woman in person. She got
Yes.
the biggest hug. I did not have COVID at the time, so it was okay.
No, no, you didn't.
But I just wanna reiterate how this woman is on screen is exactly how she is in person. And I think that is the biggest like check mark or validation for a brand of if someone's authentic. Are you the same on screen as you are off screen? And for anyone who's met me off screen in person, I'm the same crazy guy that wails his arms and loves to make punny jokes as I am anywhere. That's just my brand. And I really want to acknowledge you for that because you're exactly who I thought you would be, just a little bit more amazing.
Oh, God bless you. Thank you, Adam. That's so sweet. Now
It's
who
the
owes
truth.
who checks? Gosh, I need to write you one.
It's the truth, though. So I think you really need to ask yourself that. Like, if you're looking to learn from someone, have you met them off screen? What are they like behind the scenes? Are they the same? Do they treat everyone the same? Do they treat people that can never help them or repay them the same as the person that holds their promotion in their hand? That's a brand. How do you show up when nobody's watching? That's the ultimate test. And it's very humbling because all too often, when you take that question and you put it on yourself, that's how we raise our standards. And again, it's not a judgment in as much as it's an observation. And it's a way to hold yourself accountable, to live to that standard. Because when you build a brand that is influential globally, that's everybody's watching. So it is actually easier. I know this sounds like, oh, that's a lot of pressure. It's actually easier to be the same on screen and off screen because you're not keeping track of lies and how you're supposed to be, this and that. You're just your authentic self as you are. But Adam, people might not like me. Good. You're not wasting your time. Marketing is very simple. Marketing is two things. Marketing is attracting the people that you want to influence, that you want to do business with, while at the same time repelling those you do not want to do business with. So, for example, if you're listening to this, I highly doubt it if you follow this woman, but if you're a pharmacist who hates the profession and there's nothing that could be right, and you love pulling people down and you're negative Nancy with a capital N, I do not want to work with you. Now, that's not to say you have to be a blind optimist. And that might mean that you are not happy where you are, and there are genuine problems that need addressed. But if you are committed to finding a solution, you don't know how that's going to work. You don't know what that looks like. You just know that there's got to be a way. You're someone I want to work with because you're committed to making progress and making things better and being a part of the change rather than blaming everyone else. If you're willing to step up and live life on your terms, to unapologetically own your fire, meaning all parts of you, your past, present, and future, you're someone I want to talk to. If you're not, bye.
No, that's
That's
great.
marketing.
That's great that you called out your ideal client. We all need to know who our ideal client is. And yeah, thanks for
Yeah.
showing
And
us
I
how it's
mean,
done.
obviously pharmacist, that's my bread and butter, but if you're listening to this, if you're someone that you don't know how, you don't know why, but you just know that you're meant for more, that you feel like you've been playing life small, that you know there's more for you to give, more for you to evolve into, you're exactly who I want to help because I used to be that person too. And those are the people that I coach. When I coach one on one, it's an in depth process because we are going to get real close and deep. But through going through that, you become more than you ever thought because you become who you always have been. I want to just really reiterate this. Everything you're looking for is not for other people, it's not outside of you, it's within you. And when you unleash that and own that, you live a life worthy of the calling you have received.
Amen to that. Yes. I was thinking to myself, if I were interested in working with you, I would want to go through your course so that
Yes.
I could really think about all those things that are, I'm sure, on your worksheets and just get past some of those psychological obstacles where we don't let ourselves dream and we don't let ourselves think about what could be. And then when I would get through the whole entire course, I would want a one on one with you at least once to just basically talk to the master and say, "This is what I learned about myself," and ask you, "Do you see what I see?" Because sometimes we need that validation that, yeah, you got it right. Because it's a big deal quitting your job, getting a different job, or it's a big deal putting out your shingle and saying, "This is what I want to do and this is what I want to help you with." So I think
Yes.
there's some great opportunities. And I know that you have a waiting list for that one-on-one, consultation with your clients or your students, but I just wanted to throw that out there. I want you to know what I see, Adam. I see great opportunities for this online course and then that one-on-one coaching. That's a great opportunity.
Well, I appreciate that, Kim. And if you're on the fence, if you're thinking like, who is this guy? I've never heard of him before. There's a community that's private and it's free. It's called the Pharmacist Growth Group. So if you want to dive in and kind of get see like, what's this guy like behind the scenes? Is this the real deal? Is he really this weird? Yes, yes. I own my brand. But that's literally what is my uniqueness. And when you can tap into that and package it in a way that's of service to others, you become remarkable, which is one of the core reasons I grew so fast in my speaking career. So, again, if you go on Facebook, it's Pharmacist Growth Group, but that's a place for pharmacists who are really looking to do exactly what I described. And Kim, you're in there, you share amazing content and stories. But that's a place for you to get a taste of what's this community like. You mean there's pharmacists that aren't negative and they actually want to be a part of the change? Yes, this is the place.
Thank you for mentioning that because yeah, there's a lot of negativity around the pharmacist job right now. And I'm not saying people are wrong for having negative thoughts, but if you want to be part of a positive community, I agree. The pharmacist growth group is a great place to be. And I am going to go a little Debbie Downer on you for just 1 minute here. I love talking about myths and misconceptions because there's always that one person out there that thinks that, for example, your course does this one thing and I'm going to buy into it. And of course, I'm going to get that out of it. Or they're going to think, when I go through, this is what I'm going to do with it. What are some of those myths and misconceptions some of your students have come up with that you've maybe had the opportunity to set them straight with?
Absolutely. So they feel like they have to be someone that they're not. And it's because that's how they've been living their whole life. I have to be this way to make my significant other happy. I have to be this way in order to please my parents. I have to be this way. Which way? Who do you really want to become? And to be honest, most people have a really hard time answering that question because their whole lives, and this is not a judgment. So if you know me off screen, I know you do, Kim. I'm probably the least judgmental person because it just doesn't serve anybody. Pff, what good's that going to do? But I say it as an observation that all too often, we've never really given thought to what we want, which is where my brand started. My brand started with helping pharmacists take care of themselves. How do you fit in fitness when you don't have time? How do you nail your nutrition when you don't get a lunch break? How do you master your mindset when you're in an environment so stressful that you have anxiety attacks thinking about going to work and driving home and saying, "Oh, did I lock the drive-through?" Y'all are laughing because you know that that's happened to you. But that's how
Yeah.
it started because and this comes from a good place. We're in pharmacy to help other people. We want to serve to our detriment. But what happens is we try to pour from an empty cup and we end up serving no one. Now, every now and then you're going to have times where you got to put yourself aside. But when that becomes a habit and you don't have boundaries, then you lose self respect. Then you try to find it in validation from others, achievements, and you start to tie your identity to something outside of you. And then you start to wonder why you feel so lost, hopeless, and empty. And if you're resonating with that, it's because that's where most pharmacists either are or have been, because that's how we're conditioned. So, walking people through how to really reconnect with who you are allows you to have self respect, which creates self confidence. And real quickly, self confidence isn't doing all these things. And, it's very simple. Self confidence is keeping the promises that you make to yourself. And if you feel like you don't have confidence, I can guarantee that you're not keeping promises that you keep to yourself, because instead of what you want, you're doing what other people want. And I know one of the biggest things, like, well, I'm a mom, I have to take care, like all this stuff. That's great. But if you are consistently doing that without like a 5-10 minute break every couple weeks or whatever you can fit in, if you don't have something to look forward to, maybe you won't have that time for a month or 2 months from now. And it's different for every person, every situation. But you have to have something to look forward to that you're going to follow through with. Kim, I think you're an excellent person to ask. Like, is that true?
Oh, I definitely have to have things to look forward to, but I have to put me first.
Yes.
Sometimes I don't do it enough. And that's a good call out with the mom comment because,
It's the
yeah,
truth. I mean, they're the most
sometimes we
loving
don't.
people. They're the most loving people, and again, I was honored to be the keynote speaker for Lambda Kappa Sigma Women of Pharmacy, and, I like, so a lot of pharmacists have these thoughts. They have these struggles that they suffer in the silence, but they smile for the camera. But what I like to do is I like to take all the things that we all are thinking and I bring them to the front of the room. So when I did this keynote, there's what, 600, hundreds of women all across the country, right? And there's this keynote, and here's this dude with a beard. First thing I said, true story. I know what y'all are thinking. Why did they hire a guy to speak to women of pharmacy? And it's because my mom is the exact reason and only reason I am a pharmacist. And let me tell you how powerful the love of a mom can be. So while you might not think about it, it all has an impact, right? So you've got to really own that and see that you are only as good as to others as you are to yourself. I mean, flying on an airplane, first put your oxygen mask on yourself before you can put it on other people. There's a reason that that's a federal law.
It takes time to start
It's a
putting yourself first. So, just for
process.
anybody listening, excuse me, I still struggle with it, but yeah, you have to start somewhere. So, take that first step on the journey of a million steps or whatever the phrase is.
Yes, and I wanna real quick dive into that. So if you're thinking that and you're like, "Wow, I've not been taking care of myself. I'm a terrible mom, blah, blah, blah." Real quick, instead of judging yourself, I want you to frame it in terms of curiosity. Instead of saying, "I don't do this, I don't do that, I'm terrible, blah, blah, blah." That's gonna help you not at all. It'll probably lead you to emotional eating and all this other crap, and then you'll really be mad at yourself, and on. So instead of judging yourself, approach it from a place of curiosity. And what I mean by that is asking questions. How might I fit in a 5-minute me time today? How might I schedule something next month that's just me and my husband, me and my wife, me and my significant other? How might I add a little bit of connection with my present in the day? Maybe it's on my commute back from work. Maybe it's in the morning. Maybe it's when I tuck my kids in for bed. I have just a minute prayer thanking God on my knees at my bedside for all the blessings that I have been through. It it doesn't have to be grandiose. But when you approach it with curiosity, you give yourself a dose of grace and it allows you to connect with yourself in that place. That was some poetry right there.
Yes, yes. Hey, I think we all need as many tools in our tool belts as possible. And all those things that you just mentioned are tools that women can use to, and men too, to just take a step in the right direction of putting yourself first. And I want to wrap this up by saying thank you for sharing how people can put their brand first and figure that out. And you can help them do that with your Script Your Brand course or private coaching. Thank you for sharing how you use your voice as an educator and a pharmacist here on the Pharmacist Voice podcast. Is there anything else you'd like to share as we wrap this up?
Well, thank you for those kind words, Kim. I really just want to close by saying thank you for creating this space for pharmacists so that they can share their voice. A lot, my feeling is that I bet there's a lot of people that are intrigued by your brand because they feel voiceless and they're attracted to you, your brand, your podcast, everything, because they inherently know at some level that they have not been using their voice because they feel like they either don't have one or don't have permission to do it. So thank you for giving people permission from your own example to have a voice. And I think that's really what a brand is all about, is helping people to give themselves permission. A brand is not about you, but it stems from you so that you can be of service to others. And that is what fuels your purpose. And when you can live a purpose driven life, life will never be the same.
I agree with that. Thank you for sharing all your words of wisdom, Adam. You take care.
Thank you.